everybody. Welcome back to Crime and Coffee. My name's Allison.
And I'm Mike.
And we're back at you again this week. Just wanting to ask you a little favor. If you're enjoying what you're hearing, we would really appreciate you guys rating us on Apple Podcast. 5-star review if you don't mind.
And a couple words wouldn't hurt either. Like, hey, great job. Looking forward to whatever. You know?
Yeah, we certainly would appreciate it. It would mean a lot to us and maybe help us out a bit.
Yeah, it's a free way to support the show.
Exactly.
Ultimately, you know, this would be a great full-time job.
It would be.
Although I'd imagine there's probably quite a bit of like mental things you go through as you're researching a lot of these murders and stuff. Like, can you imagine like some of the bigger ones that are just constantly doing this all the time?
I don't know. I think I could handle it.
Yeah.
Compartmentalize is what you do.
Right.
You know, we all know there's crazy business out in the world. We just need to separate it from our day-to-day life.
Right. A lot of times on Twitter and Facebook, which we are on Twitter and Twitter, not Facebook, but Twitter and Instagram at Crime and Coffee 2, the number 2. But every time, I do a lot of the social media, and there's been some arguments over whether podcasts like this are good or bad, or, some people are mad and say, you shouldn't bring stories up again. It doesn't allow the families to cope and everything and just kind of get rid of it. But at the same time, it's public knowledge. And I always say part of being a human is telling stories. And,
right.
Maybe, some are fictionalized and some are, nonfiction. Obviously, everything we say is nonfiction actually happened. But, the whole human race is based on stories and just continue. People want to hear about things that have happened just to kind of, compartmentalize them however they do.
And nobody has to listen to true crime podcasts.
Correct.
If you're offended or disturbed by the stories that you hear, that's understandable. These are disturbing stories, but we're not forcing you to be here. We do appreciate you being here, but you don't have to be if you're bothered by it.
Yeah. I mean, if you can, just download it every week and play it somewhere. You don't have to listen to it. Just play it.
We'd like it if you listen to us.
We would. Yeah, actually, we would.
The only thing I have a problem with is if I'm doing the research too close to bed. I don't know. It must be all the information and the disturbing images must come to bed with me. And then I notice I sleep poorly on those nights.
You can just give me a little nudge and I'll take care of something.
No, you're upstairs playing your, what is it, Xbox? What the hell are you playing? PlayStation.
PlayStation, yeah, please.
Who knows what you're into these days? Lord knows what you do up there when you go play those video games.
I play in the loft upstairs.
Breaker 19, fellas. You got to help me out over here. I got a tank coming my way.
You got a tango. Got a tango
Charlie
on my tail.
Tango Foxtrot.
Tango on my 6.
Who knows? I'm just downstairs watching my Hallmark movies.
I'm solving real world problems. Okay?
I don't know about that, Mike.
Probably not, but it's fun. It's fun hearing all the explosions and such.
So what's been going on with you this week other than your tanks and explosions?
Looking forward to going to Chicago with my wife. That's you.
We are. We're going to Chicago and we're recording this early. Mm-hmm. So we only just talked to each other a few days ago on the podcast. And here we are again.
Well, I try to only talk to you during the podcast.
Yeah, that's the only time we interact in life is during the podcast. Otherwise, it's silence, radio silence through the house.
Which has been really nice. I'll tell you that. It's been really nice. But no, we're going to Chicago to see a friend for his 50th birthday. It was supposed to be a surprise. But now his wife let the cat out of the bag and he knows we're coming. So
the cat's trotting around town.
Yeah, we can talk about it openly here.
So we're heading there early Thursday morning and spending 4 nights with Mike's parents at their house. And it'll be a good time.
It will. I'm looking forward to it.
Chilly weather, that's for sure.
Yeah, feel a little bit of Christmas, not like we do down here in Tampa.
Yeah, exactly. I think today was 80 degrees in Tampa.
Which is nice.
It was actually beautiful.
I'll take it.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. How about what's going on with you?
Just work. Today was my last day of work for the next week, so I am pumped.
Wow, that's awesome. I didn't even think about that.
Exactly.
Because you always have Wednesdays off just to kind of catch up, and you do 4-day work weeks, basically. So, wow, that's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
I'd be in a really good mood if I were you.
Yeah, I'm a little worn down. It's been a rough couple of days at work, but here we are, and...
'Tis the season also. It's December, so you find yourself, trying to get yourself in a tizzy about something.
Not me.
You?
No, not me. I try not to. You were just sitting
at the kitchen table saying, I just don't know about all these things going on in my mind right now.
I said there's just not enough hours in the day.
Yeah.
And then there was a meme or something that said, the holidays are your time to be your fancy anxiety or something like that.
It's true. It's true because, with COVID, there's not as many get-togethers, I guess. Especially at our age, we don't get together with friends much.
Well, we all have things going on. You know, our kids are in activities and sports and we're working and it's just not time. And then Sunday comes around. It's I want to sit on my couch in my pajama pants, not host people and cook food and clean.
Right.
Just don't want to do it.
Can't blame you.
Yeah.
We like our family. We like being together.
We like our family. We like our friends. But, you got to try to do the best we can.
Yeah, you come first.
So, are you ready to hear my tale today?
I think so. I'm going to start writing my little notes right over here.
Gather around the fire. Get comfy.
Absolutely. I'm comfy.
So this actually, I probably should have done this a couple weeks ago because...
before you talk, I'd like to point out that this is like unscripted. Like every episode is unscripted as far as me and you. Like I have no idea what's coming up here. And
No.
I just kind of, it's live reactions. So it's not like I have little points like, okay, you got to say this here.
Yeah, no, I'm too lazy to be scripted, first of all. And then two, it doesn't sound very genuine to me.
Right. So
you can sense it on podcasts that are scripted.
Yeah, which is fine. Everybody's got a different
everybody
thing.
does their own thing. I'm not judging.
It's a show. It's an entertainment thing. So, and you obviously have your story in front of you. But,
I do.
Yeah.
But
So,
you don't know it.
sorry to
and
cut
we
you
don't
off.
know what we're going to say to each other. Lord only knows what can come out of our mouths.
Who knows?
So, as I was trying to say before you so rudely interrupted me.
True.
I probably should have talked about this a couple weeks ago because it was pretty much right at the anniversary at Thanksgiving time. But that's neither here nor there. This happened 52 years ago. 9 days ago was
Okay.
the 52nd anniversary of this.
Got it.
So more than 5 decades have passed since the murder of 22-year-old Penn State graduate student Betsy Aardsma. So this is Betsy's story.
Okay.
And sadly, this is an unsolved murder. So I'll put that out there right
Damn it.
away. I know they're unsatisfying, but this is just kind of a crazy case.
Well, what's nice? If enough people hear it and the right person hears it, maybe it sparks something.
Exactly. And that's just the thing. And I'll talk about that at the end. This is not a closed case. They're still looking for this person.
Right.
So it's kind of become a campus urban legend on Penn State University, or maybe not heard of at all because 52 years have passed. So some people say where this took place on campus, there's like sort of like spooky, ghosty vibes happening. But I was watching a video where there was a girl who was just like a Penn State lover. She'd been there. She went to school there. She worked in the library in the section where this happened, and she had never even heard about this case.
Yeah, I guess it depends who you talk to and who's into what.
Exactly. So, I think that's what people fear of, though, is that this case is just fading and getting out of everybody's minds.
Everything will be forgotten about eventually.
Yeah. So I think... the people who are trying to solve this case want to keep it going so that it can be solved and not forgotten.
Well, the problem is odds are the people, whoever did it is probably dead or very close to it.
Well, no, because they were teenage. They're like our parents' age. I would imagine they're
Okay.
somewhere around 70 years old right now.
Yeah.
So Elizabeth Ruth Aardsma, I'm sorry, I don't know if I stuttered that. Elizabeth Ruth Aardsma, also known as Betsy. She was born on July 11th, 1947 in Holland, Michigan. She was the second of 4 children, and her parents were Esther and Richard Aardsma. Betsy was raised in a middle-class religious and conservative household. Her father was a sales tax auditor for the Michigan State Treasurer, and her mother was a housewife.
Okay.
So during her childhood, Betsy liked art and poetry. As she grew older, she started to develop liberal ideas and showed concerns for the underprivileged. She was, outspoken and people who didn't have a big voice.
Can't have that. Just got to think about money. That's all you got to think about is money, money, money all the time.
Yeah,
mine.
I don't think so. So she attended Holland High School. She was a very good student, did very well. When she was graduating high school, she graduated 5th in her class with honors. Very bright
Impressive.
girl. Yeah, exactly. I think
Well,
I
Penn
was
State's a good school. That makes sense. If you make it, I wouldn't have gotten into Penn State.
Yeah, I certainly wouldn't have gotten in. I don't know how hard it is, but I think out of 640, I was more than half up in the rank, but certainly not 5th in my class.
When you're kind of thinking you're talking in the middle somewhere, it's not. It's not the top.
I'm just your middle of the line student.
Me
but
too.
Not Betsy. She was very smart. In the fall of 1965, she enrolled at Hope College. She was interested in English, art, and also biology. So she kind of went towards the arts and writing, but she was also interested in potentially becoming a physician.
That's what I tell the kids. Like, if you're into some kind of an art, it's great. Absolutely pursue that, but you also have to make some money while you're pursuing that art. Because
Right.
it's really, really hard to make money in art. And, you got to be very lucky or something, have a break of something. But,
what it
that's the
comes
smart way
down
do
to
it.
is we have to pay the bills.
Right.
As we're adults, you have to put food on the table and have a roof over your head. And I wish sometimes that somebody would have said that to me. Like, it's important
probably did.
to
We just don't
do
listen.
what you're interested in, but money is also important too.
Because a lot of it, when we were younger, it's like follow your dreams and what really speaks to you and stuff. And
yeah,
I never listen to any of that. I just want to make money.
And, I work in a hospital, so I could be working side by side with like a pharmacist who might make twice as much as I do.
You also could go back to school and do whatever you'd like.
I don't want to do that.
Oftentimes I hear you say, I'd love to be rich. And I said, well, what are you doing to make that dream happen? And you say, nothing.
I'm not. I'm just going to work every day and being a registered dietitian.
It's fun to talk about.
Exactly. It is fun to imagine what it would be like to be rich.
Sure.
So, she wasn't exactly sure at this point what she wanted to do. So she's enrolled in Hope College. Her college roommate described Betsy as an intelligent and fascinating individual who showed feminist traits. She was 5'8". She had long brown hair and definitely attracted the boys. But, she herself was more focused on her schoolwork and really didn't care to be distracted by, other boys. Mm-hmm. So she kept on the straight and narrow, focused on her schoolwork, and didn't really get sidetracked at this point by other males. Mm-hmm. So 2 years later, in the fall of 1967, Betsy transferred to the University of Michigan to study art and English. She shared an apartment with 3 other women. And then in her senior year, she began dating a medical student named David Wright, and he became basically her first serious boyfriend that she'd ever had. Wright would later describe Betsy as a very brilliant person, extremely smart with a good sense of humor, just a wonderful person.
Can you imagine that? Somebody describing you as like very brilliant and smart and witty and all that stuff.
Like, I mean, those are all great characteristics.
Yeah, nice. So she must have been very
brilliant. I mean, that's
it's heavy. It's
especially a medical student who must be smart himself.
Yeah.
So obviously she was a very smart girl. Mm-hmm. In the summer of 1969, Betsy graduated with honors. Her drive to attend medical school had kind of dwindled, and her love of reading, literature, and poetry started to grow.
That's the problem. It'll suck you right in. And, you got to love it. I have nothing against the arts whatsoever. It's just really hard. You can't walk into a business and be like, I just want to read and, research and stuff.
Right. I think Betsy had a good head on her shoulders, though.
For sure.
And really, to be a physician, you have to want to do that. Because
absolutely.
It is a huge dedication. You are spending years and years of your life completely married to your job and your school.
I mean, what is it, like 10 years of schooling before you can even do anything?
Well, what is it? 4 years of undergraduate, 2 years of medical school, I think. I don't know. And then residency is multiple years long.
That's what I was thinking about, 4 years there.
You want to go into a specialty, that's many more years. So It is a huge dedication.
Right.
So at least she's realizing that, my passion's just not there.
Right.
So after she graduated, she had hoped to join the Peace Corps and travel to Africa, but David kind of had other ideas. He had expressed to her that he didn't think if she did leave the country and was gone for long periods of time, that their relationship would survive. Mm-hmm. So, she was kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place, not sure what to do.
That's fair. If he doesn't want to go to Africa and stuff, then it's like, I got to have somebody here, to talk to.
Well, he's focusing on medical school. He's got his hands full. And at that young of an age, I think at that point, what are you? Probably about 21 years old when you're graduating.
22 usually, yeah.
You're young and you're experiencing maybe different people and finding the right person. I do get that, because I remember when you and I were in college together, Mike and I, we ended up going to the same university. Didn't necessarily plan that. It just kind of worked out.
We started dating at 16.
Yeah. So we were together for years before we even went to college. And I remember you voicing interest in a fraternity.
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't know. That's just not me. I'm just not that party girl, obnoxious, running through the campus with my shirt off, screaming drunk.
I wanted the whole college experience. I wanted the whole fraternity and rushing and all that stuff and all that. I wanted everything.
Yeah, and I had just voiced to you one day, we were playing tennis, and I said, I just don't know if you joined a fraternity, if that would just kind of put a wedge between us, because that is not my scene.
Because then you get introduced to other things, like, a lot of gals and stuff, and I was in good shape then, and, and just drunkenness and
But
bad
you
decisions.
decided not to rush and join a fraternity, and here we are 20 years later, married.
Worked out. So
Yeah,
far, so good.
It all worked out. So I don't judge David for, voicing that. I don't think he said to Betsy, you cannot go.
No, he's just saying, I don't think this is going to work if you do go.
Yeah.
You're more than free to go. Just, I need somebody here.
I don't know that we're going to stay together by the time you come home.
Right.
So because of this, Betsy chose to stay and enroll at Penn State in order to be close to David. She began at Penn State early October of 1969. She lived on campus in Atherton Hall, where she shared a dorm room with Sharon Brandt. Sharon would later say that Betsy spent much of her free time studying and also sharing her time traveling over to Penn State Hershey, where David was attending medical school.
So she's doing like what, graduate work here?
Yes,
Okay.
she's got her undergrad. Now she's in graduate school, and David is 2 hours away at Penn State Hershey. And she would go on the weekends over there to his campus to see him. Mm-hmm. She rarely joined on extracurricular activities, just really putting her nose to the grindstone and focusing on her schoolwork.
Sounds like she did that a lot.
Yeah. So I guess as she had graduated from the University of Michigan with her undergraduate, that's in Ann Arbor, I guess. I'm not that familiar with
Yes, it is.
the
I've been
area.
there.
You were there, so that's why I'm looking at you. Mm-hmm. You weren't there at school. You went for a football camp.
Yeah. So what? Okay.
I'm
Big
just
deal.
saying, like, if anyone's picturing that you were like walking along the University
All I said
of
was
Michigan.
I've been there. Okay. Easy.
I'm just setting the picture, Mike.
I met Coach Lloyd Carr, shook his hand and everything. He was a football coach.
I don't know who that is,
Yeah,
so
I don't blame you.
you're not impressing me here.
Okay.
So I guess there was a sense of relief as she left the campus of Ann Arbor because I am not very familiar with this person, but the co-ed killer had been on campus at that time.
Oh, and she was
Not at the
worried about
same
that?
university, but at Eastern Michigan University during this time frame. He ended up being 22-year-old John Norman Collins, who was on a killing spree starting in 1967 and then resuming in 1969 when Betsy was at, the University of Michigan. So I guess she felt, kind of a sense of relief leaving that campus, like, oh, okay, maybe I'm going to be safer. And I guess her former brother-in-law had even made the comment, thank God she's going to a place where it's safe.
Sure.
So we're heading into Thanksgiving break of 1969. Betsy was feeling stressed out. She had a big English assignment coming up. I guess it was a paper that was due. So she went and celebrated Thanksgiving with David and his roommates and their girlfriends on the Hershey campus. I guess they kind of sat down to an early Thanksgiving dinner, and she voiced that she was really eager to get back to campus just so she could start focusing on this paper and just get it off of her worry list.
Sounds like you.
Yeah, well, you know how it is. You're on Thanksgiving break. You're back that Monday. She probably just wanted to get a solid jump on it before Monday came around.
Sure.
So David totally understood and respected that. He drove her to the bus station, and she got back on the bus to head to campus. And sadly, this was the last time David would see Betsy. So at this point, David and Betsy had been dating for about a year. The two had talked about getting married and even thought about maybe being engaged by Christmas time, just a month later. Mm-hmm. Betsy at this point had been at Penn State for only 8 weeks.
Wow.
So her and Sharon went back that Thursday night of Thanksgiving. They kind of just relaxed, played some cards, and then went to bed. Betsy started her morning on Friday, November 28th, kind of getting herself together at her own dorm room, doing whatever work she can do on her paper with the resources she had there. It was a really chilly morning that day. And her roommate, Sharon, decided to head out. Betsy was on her way to the library, and her and Sharon had parted ways at this point, but they had planned to meet up later in the afternoon to watch Easy Rider or Take the Money and Run at a movie theater.
Okay.
At approximately 4 p.m., Betsy spoke to her professor, Nicholas Tchaikovsky, about her assignment and what references she would need in order to complete it. Mm-hmm. So from there, she then made her way to Penn State's one of the 2 libraries on campus. When I was first looking into it, I thought it was called the Patty Library.
Yeah.
It's P-A-T-E-E, but apparently it's called Putty.
Putty.
Huh.
Petit.
Oh, Petit. Thank
Okay.
you. I knew I wasn't saying that right. So
When you said it, I saw it in your face. You're
yeah, I'm like, no, that's not right. I don't want any Penn State people to be sitting there being like, you idiot, it's Petit.
Yeah, that's a tough one.
I like that word though, Petit.
Yeah.
So apparently it's one of the 2 libraries on campus.
I was hoping pate.
Pate. So she headed that way to do her research, but First, she needed to talk to another professor who I guess had a library or had an office at the library. Before she did that, she bumped into two friends, Linda Marsa and Robert Steinberg. She talked to them for a few minutes, and then she headed to Harrison Mazerol's office, who was another professor who had an office on level 1 of the library. From there, she headed to level 3, where she put down her purse, her jacket, and a book inside a Carrel desk or a Corel desk. It's basically something that's assigned to you where you leave your things while you're studying there.
Not a Corel?
It's Carrel.
Huh. Okay.
Yeah. So I don't know. Maybe this was a thing in the 1960s.
I guess so.
We didn't have it in the 1990s.
Right.
It's assigned to her. She put her things down. She walked towards the card catalog to look up these references that her professor had told her she needed.
Another thing we don't really need, card catalogs.
Oh, thank God.
Yeah.
Oh, I was always such an idiot when I was looking for books.
Well, it didn't make any sense.
It never did make sense to me. Other people seem to have their shit together, but not me. I don't know.
Don't worry.
So she found her reference that she was looking for and walked down a flight of stairs to the level 2 core stacks at approximately 4:30 p.m. According to Derek Sherwood, who is the author of Who Killed Betsy, the stacks weren't meant to be accessed by students.
Accessed. Boy, you're having trouble today.
Oh my gosh, I told you.
Imagine if English was your first language.
I'd be in trouble.
Yeah.
They were very, very narrow, cramped, and not meant for more than one person per aisle because they were so tight.
Who's supposed to get them? Probably staff.
Well, at this point in time, it was open to the students.
Because there's less people there because of Thanksgiving, probably?
No, I think really at just this period of time in mind, that's the way it was. Currently, people don't go down there. Students would give their reference call numbers to a library employee. Obviously, now it's different. We have the internet. I don't know how much this is being utilized.
Yeah.
But, in future years, a library staff member would go and retrieve the book. But at this point in time, students were going and doing those things. Back in 1969, this wasn't the case. Students were allowed to move freely and collect their own references. Mm-hmm. The last potential sighting of Betsy was in the level 2 core stacks minutes after 4:30, where an assistant supervisor named Dean Brungart noticed a girl in a red dress standing by herself in an aisle with two young men talking between themselves in a nearby space closer to the west end of the core. Also sitting in the stacks were students Joao Uafinda, and a short distance from him was Marilee Eardley. I think this was a pretty quiet area. There weren't a lot of people. It's also Thanksgiving break, and the campus is drastically reduced in number of students.
Well, I'm just picturing rows and rows of these stacks and, very cold looking place that's just kind of just books and references and everything, whatever papers you need to find. That's where these are sitting.
I saw exactly where this happened. They said too that the lighting was just horrific.
Yeah, I'd picture that too. Extremely
dimly lit, basically. But she wasn't by herself. These other students were nearby. Like I said, Marilee Eardley and Joao Uafinda, and I'm sorry if I'm saying that wrong. It's just a different looking name. They were working on their assignments just outside the entrance to the core stacks, only feet away from where Betsy was standing. Richard Allen, who was an aerospace historian, was in the stacks that evening using the copy machine as he waited for his son. Allen said that he had overheard a conversation between a male and female in the area where Betsy stood. He couldn't hear exactly what the two were saying to each other, but nothing seemed unusual. It didn't seem like they were arguing. Nothing he noticed at all out of the ordinary.
Yeah, you'd be able to pick up some kind of anger or something.
Exactly. Moments later, Allen heard a metallic crashing noise not far from where he stood. Out of curiosity, he started to move in that direction, and at the same time, he saw a young man looking like a student run barreling past him, nearly running him over.
Wow.
The crashing sound caught the attention of Uafinda and Eardley, who saw the same man that Allen saw rushing toward them. Eardley stood up as the man got closer, and the man said, "That girl needs help," as he pointed in the direction where the sound came. The man led her towards the sound, though he quickly left. Then Eardley saw the body of Betsy Aardsma laying between the dimly lit aisles of row 50 and 51. Uafinda watched the man leaving the library and discreetly followed him upstairs and saw him run out of the library. He attempted to chase him, but the guy ended up just getting away and disappearing.
Losing them. Yeah.
Yep, exactly. So the man was last seen running in the direction of the recreation hall. Eardley described him as wearing khaki washable slacks, a tie, and a sports jacket. It's funny how back in like the 1960s, people were so much more formal.
Yeah.
You know, like Betsy herself was wearing a white turtleneck and a red dress over it.
Right.
And this guy's wearing khakis and a tie. You know, we'd go looking like homeless people to the library.
Yeah, sweatpants.
Exactly.
Whatever.
30 years later, you know, in the 1990s.
Yeah.
Because we actually were on campus 30 years after this had happened. Not at Penn State, obviously, but just how the times have changed.
Right.
So he was well-groomed. He had well-groomed brown hair. He was approximately 6 feet tall and weighed 185 pounds and may or may not have been wearing glasses. I think it all just happened so freaking fast that, you know, the details were hazy.
Depends who you ask and whatever.
Yeah. A student library employee also witnessed a man rushing out of the library. The police tried to get this man to come forward. Obviously, he didn't, because here we sit and this is unsolved.
Yeah. That's,
So-
and it's not like now where there's cameras for everything. Like that guy would be found on a camera with a
Right.
very high definition film.
Exactly. So between 4:45 and 4:55 p.m., Betsy had been stabbed a single time. Stabbed.
See, what I was expecting was something fell on her or something.
Nope.
Wow. Okay. Like I pictured like some books or whatever. Something fell. Whatever. I pictured some things on top of her, but
No. So
the
she
hell?
was stabbed a single time through the left breast with a knife.
Jesus Christ, man. Like why?
Crazy. Nobody knows. Nobody freaking knows. The wound severed her pulmonary artery and pierced the right ventricle of her heart. She slumped to the ground near the end of the aisle, pulling several books off the adjacent shelves as she fell onto her back. So hence the noise that they heard, this metallic crashing sound.
That was the knife.
It was her body pulling books off the shelf.
Okay. Got it.
Yeah. So Eardley had checked Betsy's body for a pulse, and more people began to gather around Betsy, including the librarian who attempted first aid and mouth-to-mouth. The campus hospital had been called at 5:01 p.m., and responders had initially been told that a girl had fainted. That's what it was all believed to have happened.
So they weren't necessarily super in a hurry or anything.
Nothing was suspected at this point. 2 student paramedics had been sent to the scene and arrived only minutes later. Betsy was placed on a gurney and taken to the health center as the paramedics continued to perform CPR on her. Trooper Mike Simmers had been working undercover on campus when he received the call. He remembers that it was a call he had never experienced. He was told that there was a medical emergency and a student was believed to have fainted or possibly had a seizure. So he had no idea at this point what he was dealing with. He had no idea that this was a murder. He recalls following campus security into a library into the dimly lit stacks where he saw several books scattered around the floor. The floor was stained with a small amount of an unknown liquid, but there was no body to be found as Betsy had already been taken away.
Right.
So she's at the hospital. He finds the situation very odd. The area is being cleaned up. People are just walking around. Like, he's walking in and it looks like nothing happened.
But all he's responding to is somebody fainted.
Somebody fainted.
So why would it be so odd? Because of the liquid?
I don't know.
The blood?
Something just seemed off about it.
And his experience says that something was off.
Yeah, there's this liquid on the floor. This girl fell, pulled books down, and now he's walking in and like nothing's happened. People are just walking about and somebody's tending to the mess and cleaning up.
Sure.
So by the time Simmers arrived to the hospital, he had found out that not only had Betsy died, but that her death was ruled a homicide.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
So, because, typically in these situations, you want to keep the although if she can be saved, obviously you want to get her into the...
You want to preserve the scene
so
of
you
where
can
this
tell exactly.
happened for, in order to get evidence.
Investigation purposes.
So Simmers knew at this point that he is in over his head. So he needed to call in backup. So he immediately called the state police, who were located about 8 miles from campus. They all met at the library, which is now considered a crime scene.
Right.
So Betsy had been wearing a white turtleneck sweater, and the wound produced only a very small amount of visible blood. She had a thick sleeveless dress over the turtleneck. So it almost looked like a kind of like a smock type of dress. And it was, thick. It was red. So I think that kind of,
Concealed
what had actually happened.
Yeah.
She had also urinated as she fell to the ground, and that can happen during a seizure. So that's why they're like, okay, she fell, she urinated. This looks like she either fainted or had a seizure. And
wasn't a knife sticking in her?
no,
Okay. Oh, they stabbed her and went.
left.
Oh,
They fled.
okay.
So, this is all being looked at as some non-critical ailment that just happened to a poor student that was doing research in the library.
Man.
So little blood was left at the scene as Betsy had bled internally into her lungs.
Oh no.
Yeah, not externally. So shortly after arriving at the health center, a more senior medical worker noticed that there was some blood seeping through her clothing, and the paramedics were told to immediately stop CPR because I guess that's just encouraging her to bleed out, I guess.
It's almost like absorbing it, like making her breathe it in more.
Yeah, I don't know. So her blood-soaked shirt and bra were cut from her body to reveal a single stab wound that was 1 inch wide and 3 inches deep. 22-year-old Betsy had been pronounced dead at 5:19 p.m.
Wow.
Crazy. Like just an hour or so before, her and Sharon are having a conversation. Yep, we're going to meet at the cinema. We'll figure out what movie we want to see when we get there. You're going to the effing library to do some research.
And this girl never went out or anything, so
No.
it's not like a jealous boyfriend or anything like that.
She's on the straight and narrow, and somebody just walks up to her and stabs her to death.
Nuts.
So the autopsy was done by Dr. Thomas Magnani at Belafonte Hospital at 11 p.m. that same night, November 28th, and concluded at 4 a.m. the next morning. The cause of death was a single stab wound that had penetrated Betsy's breastbone, piercing her heart and severing her pulmonary artery, causing her to extensively hemorrhage into her chest cavity. Death occurred likely within 5 minutes of the stabbing.
Wow.
I mean, just bled out.
The perfectly imperfect stab.
Right.
Jeez.
Or, was it planned that way? Who knows?
I mean, it's really hard to get somebody that's alive to stab them in a perfect position. Oh, and also to know exactly where.
Exactly
a medical
where.
Student.
Yep. Betsy had been basically drowning in her own blood, unable to call out for any help.
Oh.
There were signs of petechial hemorrhaging on her chest, which is bruising and abrasions. The abrasions could have come from when she fell forward or backwards at the time, she was stabbed. But the bruising around the knife wound just showed that it was plunged in very hard. And deep into her chest.
So not like some kind of accident kind of thing. Like this is definitely targeted, and this is somebody that wanted to stab her and kill her.
Yep. The doctor who did the autopsy believed that Betsy's murderer had aimed for her heart as he faced her, and that he was right-handed and would have required a significant amount of strength to penetrate that deep into her chest.
And the breastbone. Yeah, like Pulp Fiction. That's the first thing I thought of when they stabbed the needle into past the breastbone, because you got to stab that adrenaline into the heart directly.
Right.
So he's like, you got to stab through the breastbone, and that's like a significant amount of force. And they said that the stab was 3 inches deep. So from some of our other, like Robert Wan, I think that was the story where they said it was a certain size, so that obviously the knife could only been. I mean, I'm holding my fingers up here, so maybe like a pocket knife kind of thing.
Well, somebody was saying it could have been like a hunting knife.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Either
So
way.
I don't know. And I remember when you did the Robert Wan story, I kept saying, "Where's the blood? How is he not soaked?"
Right.
Well, apparently they just bleed internally. Mm-hmm. I didn't know that.
Oh, I didn't know either.
There were no signs.
I guess it depends if you're hitting like an artery that's going to squirt,
Right.
Or this is something, like it probably punctured her lung, I guess, or
it severed her pulmonary artery.
okay.
So
Interesting.
I don't know. It's been a while since I've taken anatomy and physiology, so
Yeah,
sorry
that's
I
your
can't give more. I'm not a physician.
That's your fault.
There were no defensive wounds on Betsy and nothing to suggest that there was any kind of struggle of any kind. And it looked like the killer knew exactly where to plunge the knife.
Yeah.
This girl had no idea what was coming for her, so there were no defensive wounds. She didn't know what the hell was happening.
They go from a conversation to being stabbed in the heart.
Or maybe not a conversation at all.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Yeah.
So then, of course, the investigation begins, and Penn State Police assigned about 35 officers to investigate Betsy's murder. Hundreds of students were interviewed in the weeks after her death, and the campus was unsuccessfully scoured to find the murder weapon.
Man.
Yep, no sign of any murder weapon. A $25,000 reward was offered for any information of any kind. Investigators found that up to 400 individuals would normally enter and exit the library between 4:30 and 5 p.m. on a typical Friday. But this being Thanksgiving break, this wasn't the case. And that evening, it was likely that only about 90 had done so. I don't know how they have a count because I never had to sign in and out of the library, but...
Yeah, maybe
it's just an approximation.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. So anyway, the point is it was drastically quieter than what would be typical. And no one that was interviewed was considered to be a suspect. 2 composite drawings had been done of the man that Ufinda and Erdley had seen running.
Well, that's good that so many people saw him. So...
I think it ended up being somewhere around 3 people is really what it came down to.
Well, then they can all give their intake and be like, yeah, I think that looks right.
Exactly. So one was with the help of Ufinda and the library desk clerk, and one with Erdley. Only Erdley's drawing had ever been released to the public. By the time Simmers was back at the library to meet the state police, he found that nothing was left intact, like I said. Janitors had been instructed to mop up the urine from the tile floor and pick up the fallen books and replace them to the shelves.
Because they thought she just fainted. Let's get it cleaned up and not embarrass the lady.
Yeah. So any possible evidence that may have been there had been compromised. They found a spray of tiny droplets of blood that was found on a stairwell leading into the level 3 core stacks, and law enforcement said it looked like someone was flicking their hands, possibly after wiping the blood off of a knife. So it was just like tiny, like little picture flicking your fingers down, like if your hands are wet.
And I guess it's the 50s and they don't have DNA
It's 69.
testing. So 69, okay.
Exactly. So they matched Betsy's blood type and indicated that the murderer had fled the library through this route. But like you just said, DNA technology wasn't available at the time.
Damn.
So no one was asked to stick around for questioning. When the witnesses were eventually questioned, most just recalled hearing the books falling. Police had a couple of people who could have been the suspect, though there really was never enough evidence to make an arrest.
Okay.
State police brought in experts who used UV black lights to detect bodily fluids, and aisle 51, where Betsy had been murdered, basically lit up like a Christmas tree.
Okay.
It was covered in semen.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Sorry to laugh about the story,
it's just kind of what?
In my head, I was like, well, this is a college campus. There's probably other things on the wall, I would guess.
I don't know. I'm so innocent. Like, it would never cross my mind to, like, if I was a man, to go to the library and just jack off in the between aisle 50 and 51.
Shoot all over the books.
Call me a square. That's just me.
You've never lived until
I've never lived until I ejaculated in the library.
Level 2 at Penn State University.
So it was basically covered in semen, though I don't know why I'm whispering. I don't know.
Shit, semen.
Most of the samples appeared to be days old, if not older. One investigator commented that semen was practically everywhere, is how he quoted it.
Jeez.
They found more than 24 porno magazines stashed between the books and the aisles that Betsy had been murdered. It was suspected that the location basically served as like a little secret rendezvous spot for couples, even singles, I guess, who like to masturbate in public.
Right.
You know, I don't know. I don't judge. Yeah. It's just not me. So near the aisle where Betsy had been located, or had been murdered, I should say, there was a desk with a chair that had been pulled out, you know, like somebody just got up and pushed it back. Mm-hmm. On the desk was a partially consumed can of soda and a small stack of heterosexual and homosexual porno magazines that were dated as recently as October/November, which was at that time. Mm-hmm. Fingerprints had been taken from the can, but matched no sources in the database. All fingerprints on the magazines were basically smudged and unusable. So they got it from the can, nothing matched. Mm-hmm. It was suspected that Betsy may have known her assailant. The library aisles, like I had mentioned before, were extremely narrow. So if there were 2 people in the aisle, they could not pass each other. The one person basically had to squeeze themselves sideways in order to get past the other.
Wow.
It was like an awkward situation.
Because they want to have so many references there. And, that's all the papers.
Sure. They want to pack it in. The other thing is that it was only a one-way in. The aisles had been pushed to the wall. So where Betsy stood, she was basically trapped. Behind her was a wall. So she's in this teeny tiny narrow aisle looking for her reference. And obviously the person came towards her because there's only one way into the aisle.
They knew they had her there.
Yeah, exactly. So the killer either appeared to Betsy as another student doing research or someone that she knew. Betsy had also made no attempt to scream or flee. Of course, we found that the blood that had seeped into her lungs would have prevented her from calling out. She couldn't.
Yeah.
Much research was done to see if Betsy had been stalked. That day, Betsy was supposed to be with her boyfriend. She wasn't even supposed to be there.
Yeah.
Back in that day, there were no cell phones. There was no social media. That decision she made on Thanksgiving evening was just quick and unplanned.
Sure.
So nobody knew she was going to be back on campus and back at the library.
Yeah.
Obviously, they may have seen her that morning milling about. I don't know what she did that day. If she went down to the cafeteria and got herself breakfast and maybe we're like, oh, Betsy is back.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know. But it was all unplanned, and it's not like somebody would have had ample time to plan this because it was all spur of the moment.
Yeah.
David had been quickly ruled out as a suspect.
Obviously, it's the first person you go to.
Of course, you keep it close. And he was back at Hershey just as he was, and there was no reason to believe that he, had done anything. Betsy had voiced concerns that she was going to end up being a physician's wife, but diary entries didn't indicate that they were having any issues in the relationship. They also indicated no other suitors or issues with other men in the 8 weeks that she'd been on campus. Simmers had said that everyone either wanted to be Betsy's friends or to date her, but she was so focused on schooling that she didn't entertain the ideas of boys that had crushes on her. And also she's with David.
Yeah, she's kind of like you where it's like, no, I'm taken.
Well, there's nothing to talk about.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, well, I'm with this person.
Yeah, like that's totally.
Oh,
like
you have a crush on me? Okay, well, that's nice.
If I wasn't dating somebody, then maybe we could talk, but I am.
Yeah. It's like when we were in New York City and these guys had bought us drinks at this bar and I'm like, please don't waste your money on us. I'm married and I'm not going home with you. So please go to those other single girls and find them.
You're not getting anything here.
No, nothing's happening here. So there were other ideas that perhaps Betsy had happened to stumble upon a situation with an exhibitionist. Obviously, we saw the semen all over the place. Maybe she walked in,
guys jerking it,
but that's just, they all kind of had been dismissed.
Well, because she would walk up and be like, oh, and then just kind of turn around,
right?
Probably.
Or perhaps there was a homosexual encounter. I like how they say that. Like, why not just a heterosexual encounter? But I don't know.
Maybe two men overtook her or something.
Maybe.
Or somebody that propositioned her, like, hey, you're in the spot where people like to come and make out and jizz all over books, so let's do this. And you'd think at that point she'd be like, no, help. So it was probably again somebody she knew.
Something, and it just happened so quick.
Yeah.
So there were other possibilities that perhaps she came upon a drug deal or had unsettled drug debt. It's like, oh, okay, well, Betsy did smoke cigarettes, but she rarely drank alcohol and was certainly never known to be a user of drugs. So again, quickly ruled out.
Pretty straight and narrow type chick.
Exactly. There were countless rumors even that it was potentially Ted Bundy that did this.
Well, yeah, because it's a college campus and people are going to start talking.
Well, apparently he had been at Temple University around the time of the incident. I don't know how far of a distance it is, but clearly it's in the area. That was also quickly ruled out. It didn't show any of the characteristics of his murders. So basically the case turned cold and the case remains unsolved. Records related to the murder are sealed under the state's Open Record Act, but Pennsylvania State Police continue to seek information. So there's been a couple of authors that have written about this case. They both believe that, they know who the murderer is.
Really?
And they believe that it was Richard/Rick Hafner. So he goes by Rick in a lot of the things that I read. So at the time of Betsy's murder, he was a 25-year-old doctoral geology student. He, one of the authors specifically, his name is David DeCook. He feels that Rick is the clear killer, describing him as a charmer. He was handsome, well-dressed, with a pleasant speaking voice, but a monster, a molester of boys again and again throughout his life.
Oh, jeez.
He harbored a violent rage against women that could erupt without warning. DeCook was 6 years younger than Betsy at the time of the murder and remembers seeing the newspaper come out the next day about her death at Penn State. He didn't know her, but they both grew up in Holland, Michigan. They went to the same high school, had similar teachers, so he felt very connected to this case. Not Rick, not the suspected guy, the author.
Okay.
David DeCook. He just felt very connected to this case. It's just such a shocking thing. I mean, this, studious girl just goes to the library and gets killed. He just didn't settle well with him. So he ended up looking into it and writing a book about it.
Wow.
So he is convinced that Rick Hafner was the murderer. So he just recalls how beautiful Betsy was. This is David DeCook that I'm referring to.
Okay.
And just how the nature of her murder just was so shocking to him that he just wanted to really dedicate a lot of his time to researching. Mm-hmm. So he explains that he feels that Rick was the murderer because he had a crush on Betsy, who just wanted to remain friends. Obviously, she's studying. She's got a boyfriend that she's considering getting engaged to, and that perhaps she had rejected him. Rick claimed to be eating dinner at the Hub Student Union when he found out about the murder. But from what I had watched in a video, that this was not a far distance. So a person could have easily run across campus and sat down to dinner and been like, yeah, I'm eating here.
Right.
As a quick cover.
Get your alibi.
Exactly. There was other...
go around, you see a bunch of friends, be like, hey,
Yes.
hey, just make sure you're seen there.
Oh, the spaghetti tonight is really good, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Who knows? There was also a professor that had said, I don't know if this was left out to police or how this came to be, but only 45 minutes after Betsy had been pronounced dead, he rushed over to his college advisor, who was, I guess, somebody that he was close with, out of breath, saying, have you seen the papers? While referencing Betsy's murders. Clearly, the papers had not published anything about this at this point in time.
Obviously not.
It had just happened.
Right. That doesn't make any sense at all.
No, it doesn't. And both the professor and his wife had the impression that he may have been involved in the incident that he was describing.
Is he a complete moron? I mean, he's
exceptionally smart. No, he's geology. He was getting his doctorate in geology.
I thought it was biology and geology. No, just geology?
No, he was just
okay.
geology.
Oh, doctorate in geology.
Yeah, doctorate.
Got it. Okay, Sorry.
So he was said to have gone to extreme measures throughout his life to obtain platonic relationships with women in order to conceal his homosexuality. He lived across the courtyard from Betsy at Atherton Hall. Rick was known for erratic behavior with periods of explosive anger and outbursts. During his time as an undergrad, Rick worked at the North Museum in Franklin and Marshall College. During his time there, these rock specimens would just start to vanish.
Okay.
And Rick spending tons of time in this position nearly every day, yet he's not being able to account for where these rock specimens had gone to.
I don't know. Well, it was probably one of the students.
Apparently he had sticky fingers too.
Yeah.
And then similar to how the suspect had been described in Betsy's murder, Rick frequently wore khakis, a sport coat. He kept his brown hair short and neat.
Mm-hmm.
Shortly,
just like they said.
Yep. Shortly
washable
before,
khakis. I'll remember that.
Washable khakis.
Yeah.
Hey, I like washable khakis because who the hell wants to iron?
No, nobody.
Not me. If it's wrinkled, I ain't wearing it.
And it's nice that you can wash them and not just wear them once and throw them away.
Exactly. Shortly before Betsy's death, she had ended their friendship. I guess she had made reference that she felt like he was a creep. So who knows if this angered him? We will never know.
Wait, who ended his relationship?
Betsy and Rick. They knew each other as acquaintances.
Okay.
And
Betsy recently said, I don't want to talk to you anymore?
She recently had ended their friendship.
Oh, wow.
Somebody had said she made reference to saying, what a creep.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Okay.
Betsy's roommate, Sharon, had brought up Rick's name. I guess he recently had visited their apartment more than once in the weeks before her death.
Well, the police are going to be like, okay, anybody, think of anybody that might have something against her, that wants to get back to her, any kind of revenge, anything.
And I'm sure the list was pretty darn short.
Yeah.
She didn't seem like a scandalous girl that would create a lot of drama.
No, but he would definitely come up as somebody that she ended a relationship with.
Right. You would think it would be glaring.
Yeah, prime target.
So
I want to hear about the police interviewing this guy.
Yeah. Rick was questioned in early December of 1969 and admitted to their budding friendship and the fact that Betsy had ended it. He said, again, that he had been eating at the Student Union building on the evening of November 28th when he heard a rumor of a student being murdered at the library. He said that he didn't ever set foot in the library that evening and that he was doing his research at another building. The image made by Ufinda and the desk clerk that hadn't been given to the media does show a strong resemblance to Rick.
Rick, yeah.
Simmers, the police officer that was undercover that night, he is now retired from the state police. He said that Rick was never named a suspect.
Whoa.
Yeah.
That's insane.
So later developments after the fact, obviously Betsy was murdered November of 1969. In August of 1975, two boys that worked in Rick's family's rock shop had separately accused him of pedophilia. He went to trial, which resulted in a hung jury and successfully ensured expungement of his records for his arrest and trial in 1981. Rick was fined $500 and sentenced to only 1 month in county prison, but served only 2 weeks. Rick's temper came through on many future occasions. He was cited with disorderly conduct for causing disturbance in the lobby of a newspaper. In 1992, he was arrested for interfering with the custody of a child after he took a 13-year-old boy to Virginia. It's like, what?
That's nuts.
The boy's mother reported him missing, though the case was dropped after the mother said that Richard had taken the boy to Virginia on previous occasions. It's like, okay, but maybe this occasion I didn't give the clearance to do so.
And what kind of parents given their 13-year-old okay to go with some guy?
This is the 70s.
Yeah. Right.
Actually, no, I don't know what year. What year was that? No, I'm sorry. That was 1992.
Oh, wow.
In 1994, police responded to an incident at his home and charged him with aggravated assault, resisting arrest, assaulting an officer. In 1998, he was convicted of assaulting a Delaware woman after an argument in a liquor store parking lot. The woman had seen a dog in the shopping cart and thought that the dog was abandoned. So she, got out of her car to investigate what's this dog doing.
Oh, poor little dog. I want to see if it's okay.
Apparently it was Richard's dog. They argued, the woman went to leave, and Richard struck the door of her car with a liquor bottle. When she got out of her car to get his license plate number, he got out of his car, grabbed her by the neck, and pulled her out of her car, kicking and punching her, causing her jaw to dislocate and several of her teeth to become loose.
Oh my God.
So this man is capable of violence.
Yeah, horrible things.
This is a person in a liquor store parking lot.
Jesus Christ.
I always say, how can you get yourself worked up to the point that you're going to put your hands on somebody, a woman no less?
Right. I mean, I get it, self-defense, that's one thing, but this woman was just trying to get away.
She was trying to get his license plate and get back in her car.
Yeah, that's nuts, man. This guy's screwed. I mean, all signs point to him, obviously. Mm-hmm. This is somebody closely connected with her and
had
multiple things afterwards.
Interest in her.
Yeah.
Neighbors heavily dislike Richard. His yard was in disarray, filled with broken down cars, metal drums, and tarps covering piles of rocks. Obviously, a messy yard doesn't make a murderer.
No.
But when one particular neighbor complained to city officials, Richard
broke his jaw.
No, actually, he just got even by spreading his junk and garbage all across this person's porch.
Nice.
Another time he pierced a neighbor's tire. Another time his dog pooped in the neighbor's yard, and when he was called out on it, he picked up the crap with his bare hands and threw it into the car window of the neighbor.
Yeah, so he's if he gets mad enough, there's no telling what he'll do.
Yeah, he was basically described as a very scary and threatening person.
And you also said that he didn't love, or he kind of hated women, basically.
He used women to conceal the fact that he was likely a homosexual.
Yeah, but he also there was something I think in there that you said he had a violent
outbursts and temper,
but against women specifically. So the thing was, Betsy, she was a feminist, and I'm sure they didn't really get along in those areas because he probably spoke down about women, and she was like, no, actually women are pretty good. We should have all these things. We actually need even more. And I'm sure, on just a kind of a mental level, they probably didn't connect very well.
Probably butt heads in that regard.
Yeah.
And who knows, maybe that was part of the reason why she ended their friendship. It's like one of those situations. She's focusing on getting her graduate degree, and she's got this guy who's probably making inappropriate comments or whatever, and she's like, I don't need this in my life.
Like, buddy, you're gay. Just come out and get out of the closet.
It's cool.
It's okay.
Yeah, come on out.
Right.
We'll accept you.
Yeah.
In 2009, Richard's cousin had said that on one occasion in 1975, he overheard a conversation between Richard and his mother. She was angry about the molestation charges that had been filed against him, basically upset that she was needing to cover for him again. And it never rang out to his cousin because he didn't know anything about this whole case. So it's like, and he was probably a child. He just overheard something and didn't really piece it together.
Sure.
But now, like, the dots were coming together as he's hearing about the actual case.
Like, what else did you have to cover for?
So there was talk about how he had killed that girl. That was said between him and his mother.
That was actually said.
His cousin overheard this conversation.
Whoa.
She's like, basically, I covered for you one time, and now you're putting me through this again with this molestation charges.
Yeah.
And that you've done this before, and now you're putting me on the line again. The conversation ended with her saying, you might as well kill me too. So
okay, so it wasn't necessarily you killed that girl. You might as
there
well
was talk about, quote, killed that girl.
Oh my God.
Yeah. But this was not until like 2009 was this even said.
You would think that this guy that overheard this would... He was young, you said?
He was young. It was his cousin.
Okay.
He was a kid himself when all this was happening.
And then you wonder how much he actually remembers accurately.
I don't know. He says he does.
Yeah.
In 2002, Richard ended up dying. So
Okay.
he's not even with us any longer.
I was going to say, now with all these podcasts and stuff, people got to be knocking down this guy's door.
So he died in a Las Vegas hospital at age 58 after suffering a heart attack in the Mojave Desert while studying rocks.
What a dickhead.
Yep. So I guess we'll never know.
Without him, clearly.
Betsy had been laid to rest December 3rd, 1969. Her casket remained open, and she was buried at the family plot of the Pilgrim Home Cemetery in her hometown of Holland. She held a single rose from her boyfriend, David. The final letter that she had written to him arrived only one day after she was murdered. How hard is that?
That sucks.
We used to write each other letters all the time.
Yeah, when we loved each other.
Back in the day when we cared for one another.
We were sweet.
Now we only talk on the podcast, like we said.
Yeah, and I send you explicit pictures through Snapchat. And
I'm like, Mike, I don't want to see your penis.
yeah, stop sending it. I'm at work.
Please.
I'm at work.
It is not appropriate right now.
Right.
The fear is, that Betsy will be forgotten, that her case will be forgotten. Many Penn State students, like I said, they're completely unaware that this murder ever even happened on their own campus. And, of course, people who had been part of the investigation have died or retired. Betsy's own family no longer speaks of the case. They, want to move forward in their life and live the years that they have.
Well, yeah, and then you have all these people that bring it back up and say, did you ever think about this and whatever? And I mean, you can't get, especially this guy that died. I mean, it's a good chance that this
it
guy
was
did it.
probably him.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd hate to say it, and if it wasn't, but...
Well, he's dead already, so it doesn't really matter. Rick's not a good guy. So
no, not at all.
Who cares? He's a piece of shit.
Yeah.
That's okay to say.
I guess so, yeah.
Yeah.
But Betsy's death did help play a factor in forming the university police force at Penn State. Pennsylvania State Police Trooper Tyler J. Grube with criminal investigators told Oxygen.com that the case remains very active and open.
Very active. How does a case
Or active and open.
Okay.
So it is active, it is open.
Yeah.
And anyone with any information about Betsy Aardsma is asked to call the Pennsylvania State Police at 717-783-5599.
Yeah.
And that is the story of Betsy Aardsma.
And anybody that might have information would probably be looking it up and then listening to podcasts like ours, looking up Betsy's name, trying to see who's talking about it.
Yeah.
Oh.
So 52 years ago, right at this time. Very, very sad.
And it's sad.
Yeah.
It's too bad. Poor thing.
Just don't know what kind of crazies are out there.
And had her whole future ahead of her, and who knows what she would have accomplished.
Exactly. She obviously was extremely motivated, bright. She was described as brilliant. I'm sure she would have done many great things, and that was sadly taken away from her in the library while she was trying to get an assignment done.
I can't even imagine what it could have been. Like even this guy that had this relationship, then it went sour. It's like maybe he propositioned her or something, but she would have screamed,
But, if she would have saw David walking towards her,
She'd be like,
she
"Oh,
lived
hey."
in the same dorm as him.
Yeah.
It wouldn't have been crazy to see him in the library basement or wherever they were.
Probably tried to get out of the aisle.
But it was super tight.
Yeah. And he's like, no, you're not. But then as soon as he says you're not going anywhere, she'd probably scream. Or
Right.
something.
Maybe he didn't say that.
Yeah, maybe.
Maybe he was literally just talking to her and...
Saw her go into the aisle and was like, wow, man. But
And
it
then-
couldn't have been premeditated either because he didn't know that she was going to be there.
Right. But, he had a knife on him. And the other thing is that he drew attention to it. That girl needs help.
Yeah. Weird.
Why did he do that? Why... the thing that makes me so upset is that 3 people saw this person.
Could have
and
stopped
he
them.
freaking got away. And I don't blame them.
No, of
they
course
didn't
not.
know what was happening.
That one dude tried to follow
It's
him.
just such a friggin' shame. Like, they all saw him.
And now we're talking about it, and it's unsolved.
And
just
52 years later, he got away.
I'm sure they're all kicking themselves too.
Well, and again, I don't blame them.
No, of course not.
But it's just so crazy that he got away.
Well, you know how you look back at something and be like, if I just would have said this, or if I just would have done this, it would have been different. But you didn't, and how were you supposed to know?
Well, you know, and you're in your own world. You've got your head in your book studying. You hear some commotion. You're like, what the hell's that? You know?
Yeah. The guy runs away, and you're like, oh, I should go check it out.
And everything happens so fast.
Yeah.
You know, that's just how it is. And hindsight's 2020. You wish you would have grabbed him. You wish this or that or the other, but it didn't happen. And,
I give credit to that one dude that followed him as much as he could.
Yep.
Until he got lost.
Yep.
Yeah. And,
So-
gosh.
Very unfortunate. Unsolved cases just make me crazy because no justice is brought to the person, and this crazy lunatic was left to run around in the world.
Yeah. It's too bad.
Yeah.
It's just, you gotta focus on what you have, and forgive people for whatever, and then that's the only way to move forward.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
So that's it for me.
Well, great job. Well, if you know anything about it, go ahead and call those police.
Yep.
Hopefully someday it gets closed.
I hope so. So until next time,
Hey, thanks for listening.
we appreciate you being here.
Very much.
Okay. Bye.
If you like the show, please take a moment to rate, review, and subscribe. It really does help the show to grow. Thank you for listening.